This is Coda Radio, episode 513 for April 10th, 2023. Hey friends, welcome into Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and the business of software development and the world of technology. My name is Chris, and with his eye on the tech, it's our host, Mr. Dominic. Hello, Mike.
What's up? Happy ham hangover day.
You sound mostly healthy. You sound pretty good.
Better. I'm healing rapidly.
Good job. You're getting over this faster than ever now. I think it's all the red meat.
It's you know what? Yesterday it was pork, but let me tell you, a little too much.
Ooh,
I woke up groggy. It's like, oh my god, it's so much ham.
The ham hangover.
Yep,
it's real. Yeah, it is real. Yeah, well, while you were enjoying the Easter festivities here in my local Alderwood Apple store, the first Apple store to open up in Washington State, at least in my area, one that I even stood in line outside in my robe for once because that was the thing people did back in the day.
Nice.
Has had a tragic robbery. And the burglars stole $500,000 worth of gear after tunneling through an adjacent store bathroom. This really happened at the Alderwood Mall here in the Pacific Northwest in Linwood, Washington. They got 400 different devices, and somehow they managed to dig through it was like a coffee shop or something. Yeah, Seattle Coffee. Yeah, they dug through Seattle. Can you believe that?
I believe
got
it.
in there. It's amazing. 436 iPhones were taken through a hole in a bathroom. And the thing is the holes, I absolutely could not fit through this hole, if you know what I'm saying. I could not. Maybe my kids could fit. It's not a big hole, Mike. I mean, because it's right next to a turlet. So you can see, for size comparison, your average retail turlet and this hole in the wall that's about the size of a doggy door.
Well, it's good that they know how to tunnel because I feel like they're very soon going to very much need that.
Yeah, this is maybe going to be a theme of the signs. This is a theme. Definitely, it's a sign of things to come, but of what, I'm not so sure. Maybe we could discuss it at a Jupiter Broadcasting meetup, jupiterbroadcasting.com/meetup. Quick shout out. We have one coming up at the end of the month in Olympia. I have been having a lot of fun with VS Code, and I just wanted to share it with the class real quick, because I know none of this is going to be new or shocking to anybody, but I've been using VS Code for more and more things, and one of the things I really liked when I was on the Mac was this app that was a little bit overkill, but it was called Text Expander. I'm not sure if you've ever tried Text Expander.
Yep.
Really handy for just creating quick codes, combos you can do on your keyboard, and then it'll input a large chunk of whatever you want. And it can have variables in there, and it can have some code interpretation. So it's really powerful, and it's fantastic if you're, for me, like working with a lot of emails, creating a lot of show docs. It's just nice to have these kind of text expanders, as they call them, to just, boom, pop out a block of code or so whatever, like a format of a doc in Markdown, whatever I might need. And there are ways with pros and cons of doing this on Windows and Linux. But I realized that I'm now using VS Code on all the platforms I might use anyways, and there's not really a great solution on Linux. So I decided to, just over the last week, to just go all in on VS Code snippets. And it's actually really, really nice. And I have in the show notes a link to a VS Code snippet generator. So you can put what you want in one column, what you're trying to get into the snippet, and it will generate the JSON necessary that you can just go paste in your snippets file.
Oh, wow.
And it's really quick. And the result is, like, I have now a whole series of quick doc snippets and whatnot that I can use to create different sections or replies to emails in VS Code. And I really should have embraced the snippets power user feature earlier. I didn't really feel like learning the format required. Now, the other thing I've done, and I'll link this in the notes, this is really handy too, is it's a snippet generator extension. So it'll take whatever you currently have in VS Code, and you highlight that, and then with the command palette, you tell it to generate a snippet from what you have in VS Code right now. It'll ask you for what you want to name it and stuff like that. Then it'll generate the snippet code for you, and then you go put that in your snippets file. And it's really quick. It's really simple. And when you got something like, oh, this would make a great template or a great snippet, you can capture that in like 10 seconds. And so I'll put a link to all that in the notes at coder.show/513. Because I've just started playing around with it. And I know, again, a lot of people are going to know about this. But for me, sometimes it takes a while for me to decide, all right, I'm going to go all in on this feature. And then the beautiful thing is, as you probably guessed, is if you have VS Code syncing turned on,
Yep.
yeah, it syncs those snippets across all your machines. Love that. So I'm trapped forever, I think.
It's just
I think this is me just deciding I'm never giving up VS Code. I think that's what I just did.
never gonna give you up.
It took me a long time, and I admit part of it was Microsoft, part of it was Electron. I was like, I want to make Kate work for on Plasma, or I just want to make some native text editor, like maybe like if I'm on the Mac, BB Edit, something like that. But you can't beat the plugin ecosystem, the extension ecosystem with VS Code. And then you combine that with the fact that I stood up a VS Code web server on my tailnet.
Right.
So now I have a persistent VS Code URL that I can hit that gives me Visual Studio Code, most of my extensions in a web UI. And I've set it up so I can access some of my Nextcloud files, like my documents and notes directory, inside that VS Code web instance. So I have VS Code anywhere in the world that I have Tailscale now. And then I also have VS Code installed on all my machines. Like, how do you beat that? Like, it's just like, and then you combine it with the extensions. Like, it's made Joplin so much more doable for me, because Joplin's UI, Joplin's kind of like a great Evernote killer, except for the UI is dog slow for me for some reason. But you grab the Joplin VS Code extension, and now I'm using VS Code to edit all my notes in Joplin, and it's great because I already have it running, and it's right there, and it just integrates with the file browser. So this is the week I announce I've officially committed to a long-term relationship with VS Code. I mean, I've been flirting on and off for years. I really have. We've been pretty serious. We even moved in together, but we're actually tying the knot. So over this last week, I snuck off, eloped, and got myself hitched to VS Code. I'm all in now because I've got all these snippets, and I'm syncing them, and I got the web instance.
I love it. Resistance was always futile.
It was. The VS Code empire is, it's just strong, and I can't deny it. It's got great resources. And so if you haven't set up a VS Code web instance, but you're, anybody out there that's just kind of comfortable with Docker Compose, it's really straightforward. You can get it going in no time. Those of you who know me won't be surprised. I just went over to the Linux server IO fleet and grabbed their instance because I already run some of their other containers. But they got a Docker Compose that's ready to go, fires it right up, and you got VS Code in your web browser. You put that on your tailnet, you're cooking with gas. Or you put it like up on a Linode, you got VS Code with your own personal extensions synced to your stuff anywhere in the world. How do you beat that? Linode.com/coder. Go there right now to get $100 and 60-day credit on a new account, and it's a great way to support the show, keep production going, and check out fast, reliable cloud hosting built for developers. Try it for your next project. Try it for something you've wanted to just learn and explore. It's what we use for everything we've deployed since we've gone independent. And Linode has rolled out beautiful, sweet, fantastic, wonderful upgrades. I mean, I'm talking NVMe disk, I'm talking better processors, and I'm talking making it easy to upgrade even more infrastructure when you need it, just with a push of a button. So if you're a performance hound, Linode's definitely got it. If you need something that's straightforward, that can just get up and going, like a GitLab instance or a Zoom replacement, or maybe just an Nginx box that you can set up with their awesome DNS manager. Linode does all of that, and they do it so well that it just gets out of your way. Anyone on our team can manage our Linode systems, the whole range, because it just works for everybody. That, some of us, we use a command line interface. Some of us use the web interface. And then, some of us like Wes, I think they just kind of connect to it mentally through some sort of distant mind meld. I'm not really sure. But Linode's been doing this for nearly 19 years, making the best product possible and surviving in a very dynamic market. And if you're a Python fan and you're going to PyCon US, Linode's going to be there April 19th through the 27th in Salt Lake City. They're going to be at booth 429. Go tell them Jupiter Broadcasting sent you and go say hi. PyCon, huh? Man, I wish I could go. Go in my place, will you? And go say hi to Linode for me. Or you can go from wherever you are at. Just go to linode.com/coder. Try it for real, get the $100, and support the show. That's linode.com/coder. All right, so the news is in for Q1, and it's bad for Apple. Apple's Macintosh shipments have fallen more than 40%, worse than every other PC manufacturer. It's not great, but yeah. They're like Dell's down 30%, Lenovo's down 30%, HP's down 24%, Asus is down 30%, but Apple's down 40% in shipments.
Yeah, some of that might be that the M1 sold super well too, but it's they're expensive, right? And it's a sign of the times.
I think that's it. I mean, when you have a number this big, it's not one thing.
Right.
So it is, we're kind of at the kind of tail end of the current M series, with the exception of a couple of the M2s. And you got to figure there was a big buying spree during the work from home transition.
Yes.
People are set for a while. And so that's playing a factor. And then I think you're also right. The recession is beginning, my friends. I just was watching on CNBC this morning. They're all debating if we're going to have a recession. I don't know how you get to these numbers without thinking it's likely, especially with gas prices going on the rise right now. And it's more likely than not that the Fed will increase by another 25 basis points. And we're going to get inflation data between when we're recording and when this episode comes out, so it's hard to say. But I have speculated for a while that Apple is going to get punished the most economically in this new economic reality. Now, right now, Apple is looking like the king because they're doing just a few layoffs. They just announced they're going to do a few layoffs. They're doing the least amount of layoffs, and Wall Street loves that because it shows the discipline that Apple displayed by not overhiring. Well, they just demonstrated quasi best business practices is what they did. But the reality is they sell luxury devices. They sell $1,200 phones and $2,000 laptops. And when Apple suffers, an ecosystem of accessory makers and component makers suffer. And so TSMC just announced that they are missing their sales target for the second straight quarter. They cite tepid demand. They say both chip and memory shipments and sales are down. Obviously, Apple is one of their largest customers, with the iPhone being one of their largest products, and Apple has halted production on some of those devices. Another ominous sign. And TSMC cites rising interest rates, a surge in inflation, and an ongoing banking crisis that is denting consumer sentiment. It's dented. It's dented, yeah.
Just a fender bender.
Also, yeah, maybe a Fed that's actively working to get unemployment up to 5%.
Listen, Jay Powell has not seen a job he didn't want eliminated so far.
Here's my thinking. You ready?
Go ahead.
App developers are developers who focus on apps for mobile platforms are I'm thinking of like the Marcos and the others out there, these indie developers who live and breathe on these app stores. They're done. Because not only is the money tight and the interest rates going up and the terminal rate to get money going up, but sales are dropping dramatically.
I mean, so you're talking the consumer-facing dudes.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the ones you actually see that make money in the App Store that aren't like commercial enterprise apps related to a job.
Right. I mean, I think that's been the trend anyway, though, right? Like your average indie developer who's focused on the consumer has been royally forked. He's been sporked even. I mean,
what's funny, though, is I was just checking in with some of our favorites, and they don't see it that way. They're expecting this headset to be a huge hit. They're going to make a bunch of money off of it. They're going to make a bunch of money off the next iPhone because they always make money when the Apple devices sell.
Yeah, I'm sure they get a bump. I would believe that, right?
Previously. Who's going to buy a $2,000 headset and a $1,200 iPhone in the middle of a recession in the fall?
I would like to tell you that I'm not, and I'm probably not in this case.
They'd really have to knock it out of the park, right?
Do you think they're really coming out with this headset?
I think if they don't, and they don't knock it out of the park, Apple's going to be on a decline for years. And I've never said that.
What does knocking it out of the park look like?
I mean, it's got to be a device that you and I come on here and eat our hat and go, you know what? Yeah, we're going to buy one of these. That's like, it's got to meet that bar. It's got to.
Well, that happened once, right? I ate my hat on the watch because the health tracking stuff, I use it every day.
I mean, they got us with the M processors too. They did a pretty good job there, but that's a whole different kind of category.
It looks like something my grandma would wear because she doesn't like light when she sleeps. I mean,
Here's my question, Mike, because you could see how Apple Fitness could play into a headset, but how does a program like Apple Fitness, where they own warehouses that they've converted into yoga studios and all these fitness research divisions that they have with hundreds and hundreds of employees to run Apple Fitness and the watch stuff, and Apple TV, which was made possible by Easy Money, and $10,000 Mac Pros, how does any of that exist in the next few years? None of that. It feels like you got to cut. Like, we may be looking in a future, in a couple of years, where Apple TV is basically a dead project.
Oh, don't say that.
Something's got to give.
Don't say that. I love my Apple TV.
I actually think they're doing pretty good show-wise, too. So I don't know, man. Maybe they could get some success there. It's just, I don't know if they did a services transition fast enough. And that's what we're about to watch, is did they transition to services enough to survive this?
Well, hang on. Just, we got to go back to the headset, because this is not me, playing the straw man here. I honestly don't get what this thing would be for at the price point. Like, I get the Oculus because it's like $200 or whatever. And you know what? Everybody wants to fight Darth Vader. It's fun. It's cool. Beat Saber's fun.
I think Tim Cook told us recently, actually.
Okay.
In an interview.
What did he say?
It's for communication. It's for collaboration and communication. So maybe they've cooked up some sort of fancy FaceTime VR. Which means you'd have to have another $2,000 headset to talk to somebody.
I was going to say, so what are they? They're going to sell like enterprise bundles? So you can buy like 6 of them?
Well, I mean, they sell $2,000 MacBooks to enterprises all day, right? So, I mean, not right now.
Yeah, but the 2,000, ooh, that was rough.
Too soon?
The $2,000 MacBook is a pretty easy investment.
With an obvious return.
Right. And you got to give Apple one thing. They're still good about their support. You go to the Apple Store, they usually help you out. Something's messed up. But I don't know. I mean, maybe, I'm going to be traveling during WWDC, unfortunately, this year. But not that I would go anyway, but I have never been less excited about a WWDC upcoming. And I think that's what we're really talking about when we say the headset, right? Because presumably, if they're releasing this peripheral, they're going to have a whole, I know they have AR kit and reality kit and all that stuff, but it's not where it needs to be
I agree. I see these headsets and these VR things as the same kind of hype bubble that Web3 was. They threw a bunch of money at it. They never really got to a product. They never really demonstrated market potential. And it was a result of just, hey, let's go. We got infinite growth going. We're making tons of money. We're selling stuff. People are buying whatever we make, including $300 speakers. Let's just go, boys. People are buying ceramic watches. Let's make a headset that's $2,000. People are buying MacBooks that are more than that. Let's do it. And, they'll probably put some serious hardware behind it to justify that price. I have no doubt it'll probably have an M-series chip in there, and it'll be powerful. But I think it is the product of a different era and a different mindset. The one that is currently sunsetting, but for some areas, like our buddies that I've talked to recently that don't see the App Store bubble bursting, and the folks that are making headsets like this, they're still thinking in the old world where it was game on, we're all making money, let's go, 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 infinite growth. And they haven't transitioned to a scarcity mindset and a harsher reality that consumers aren't going to be buying nearly as much for a while. And I think these are the types of products that you cook up when you can sell anything. And when you have to sell things based on their merits that justify their price, and you're talking more specs and techs and features and less possibilities and promise, I think it's just a different product for a different market. I don't know. I mean, you and I could be dramatically wrong on this one. I'm leaving room for that. I think partially because I'd like to see it. Part of me would like to see this. I would like to see this work out. Because the Quest showed us, the Oculus showed us there is a glimmer of potential here. It just really comes down to the entire execution.
It comes down to the price. I mean, if it's $3,000, that's a non-starter.
Yeah, I picked up a used Quest. I got my Quest for under $300. So that was definitely a factor of me being willing to try it.
Yeah, I wouldn't have bought one either if it wasn't like, okay, it's not that much money and I can it's a toy, right? I don't know. I mean, we should get off this. It's coming out in a couple months anyway, or allegedly, but
I think they're screwed, man, because this is going to be way too expensive. I think you're right in your analysis. Even if I think it's going to be a cool toy, I don't think it's going to sell like it should. And I think Apple is entering a rough period. And this is one of the reasons why I switched to Graphene OS is I think long-term they turn internally to their existing user base. They just sell inward. I really, what I worry about the most is developers because they've created such a sexy, attractive platform. But it's almost like it's going to string you out and it's going to leave you empty with nothing.
Well, for the cost, you're talking about the headset?
I'm talking about anything in the Apple ecosystem now. That if you become an Apple ecosystem developer at this point, you're entering an ecosystem that's going to try to milk you for everything and milk all your users for everything. And all the incentives are turning wrong.
Such is life, though, right? I mean, they're all trying to milk you. I mean, I don't know. I feel like the problem with the headset is the same problem Oculus has, or whatever it's called, the Quest, in that if you are a small independent ISV and you have a sober look at what the cost, both in time and capital, is to develop for these kind of platforms, it's really high. It's basically unattainable. Or or at the very least, it's a bet the company move. And it's a wild bet, right? Like if somebody pulls it off and becomes, the indie hit of
headsets,
more power to them.
That'd be a hell of a thing.
That'd be a hell of a thing, but you're taking a lot of risk. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't believe in the category at all. At least not yet.
In the file of the whole app ecosystem is screwed up, and I don't think you should touch it with a 6-foot pole. It turns out that a app developer advocacy group that does lobbying in Congress, that helps write legislation, that represents multiple different companies. It's a group known as ACT, A-C-T. They swear up and down they're not beholden to Apple, but a Bloomberg report confirms that Apple pays for more than half of the funding of the ACT group. Former employees say the actual percentage is much higher than the way the books have made it look. They brand themselves as the voice for thousands of app developers around the world, but in reality, they mostly represent Apple's view. The ACT president said in an interview that this assertion doesn't even, quote, pass the laugh test. But if you look at all of their lobbying and what they push for, it's exactly what Apple lobbies for, and they even use the same language. So, like, for example, the Open App Markets Act, which has been floating around right now, would loosen control over the App Store, supposedly open up doors for side loading and maybe other payment systems. Yeah, right. And it's backed by the Coalition for App Fairness. But ACT, who supposedly represents thousands of developers around the world, well, they oppose the Open App Markets app, arguing that it would threaten privacy and security of the App Store, echoing Apple's talking points. And, of course, ACT has also drawn scrutiny from developers, some most famously known like Tim Sweeney, who is the executive officer of Epic Games. He called the association, quote, Apple's fake small app developer lobby in a June tweet.
I feel like that's a rare miss for Tim Sweeney. He's usually coming out hotter than that.
Yeah, he didn't turn it up. And yeah, because these guys were involved in some of the fight against Epic too, so you would think so. Of course, VeriSign's in this group, at&t, Intel, and Verizon.
Those well-lauded small developers, at&t and Verizon.
Yes. Those indies.
those garage hackers, yes.
A former Congress critter, when interviewed by Bloomberg, said that ACT presents themselves as the, quote, unified voice of app developers to Congress, and that they seem to have sown a lot of confusion. And so they're going in Congress pretending like they represent independent developers all around the world.
What? Lobbying interests align with the big player in the industry?
Yeah, there's gambling in this establishment. Can you believe it? I don't know. I know. It's unbelievable. But the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because it demonstrates sort of how even these groups who can sort of virtue signal as representing developers can get co-opted and owned. And this is sort of the way that Apple can maneuver without having to directly be the bad guy in the public spotlight. It's a real clever kind of, not a subsidiary, but that same sort of move where you basically are the puppet master of another company through financing. And, if Apple is their largest donor, which former employees say is more than half of where their revenue comes from, how hard are you going to work to actively fight Apple policies? Just the way the incentives line up, it ain't happening. You're not going to do that. You're not going to bite that hand.
I mean, is this surprising? This reminds me of way back in like 2012. I was all up on my soapbox about the just obvious bull of the app review editorial system at the time, where it's so weird that like when somebody leaves Apple on good terms, then turns indie, they seem to get featured and their apps seem really like weird.
Yes, I remember that trend. Also, people that are just sort of good boys and promote the App Store and the iPhone and maybe jump right on top of brand new features and blog about them and kind of help Apple advertise whatever Apple's focusing on. The good boys that figured that particular little trick out also got a lot of recognition in those early years in the App Store.
Yeah, it's and now of course Apple's like, you can pay us to be in a different place in the store. So, again, capitalism eats everything.
Would you like your results at the top of the search when somebody searches for your competitor's app? Just buy now. Yep, that's what it is now. And the search still sucks. Tailscale.com/coder. Go there to get a free account for up to 20 devices, and it's a great way to support the show. Now, Tailscale is a zero config VPN that you can get up and running on all of your devices in just minutes. It makes traditional VPNs seem old and crusty. Tailscale lets you set up a mesh network between your devices using WireGuard's noise protocol. Mobile device, Linux device, Mac, Windows, VPS, it doesn't matter. And it's perfect for developers that need ad hoc networking and don't want to fuss with all of the complications of lots of firewalls and different subnets to deal with it. Because Tailscale will traverse NAT, it'll traverse multiple firewalls, carrier-grade NAT when you're on mobile networks. I can attest to that. It is fantastic. And Tailscale has a community event coming up, their first, Tailscale Up in San Francisco on May 31st. Early bird tickets are still available, so if you go to tailscale.dev, you'll see information about that. But do me a favor, start at tailscale.com/coder. An in-person conference covering a range of topics hosted by Tailscale, that's going to be pure awesome. Tailscale existing users, I am happy to announce that Tailscale Funnel is now in beta. They've been testing this privately for quite a while, and it's fantastic to see it come out in public beta. Now, Tailscale Funnel is a tool that lets you share a web server on your private Tailscale network with the public internet. Now, why might you want to do that? I think this could be a fantastic way if you're testing something, an application you've been building that's behind your tailnet, you want to expose to the public for a bit so someone can test it for you or a client can take a look at it and review it. I mean, you can start to really kind of chew this around in your head and think about how powerful Tailscale Funnel might be. I just absolutely love Tailscale. I use it on the daily. I have it installed on all of my mobile devices, and that's how I sync all of my private information back over my LAN. And I don't have any inbound firewall ports for any application. And I hate to admit it, I used to have several just to get things done. That problem's been solved with Tailscale. It's so simple, it's so straightforward, and you can try it for free for up to 20 devices and support the show. When you go to tailscale.com/coder, you're going to thank me for this one. It's just so freaking great. Tailscale.com/coder. All right, we knew we were going to see some useful tools come out of like the ChatGPT era of infrastructure. But how about this one? Dr. GPT. It'll diagnose your software failures. Dr. GPT will start tailing your log file, and you define like things like a trigger to look for. You can tell it necessarily what it needs to or not look for, that kind of stuff. And give it a directory, set it all up in a config YAML file, and then you fire up Dr. GPT, and it will monitor your log outputs and help you diagnose and debug problems in a useful way, supposedly. What is your reaction to this kind of thing? Like, is this the future? Is this how we'll use this kind of stuff? Is by having it parse stuff that the humans just can't be bothered to read on and check all the time?
I mean, it's not the worst idea, right?
No.
It seems very useful.
Yeah.
It depends on how good it is, right? I have not tried this one out, so I don't really know. But yeah, I could see that being like, hook it up to Slack and send you a message. Hey, ding dong, you have this obvious security error based on your log file or whatever.
Our buddy Alex on his YouTube channel has been playing around with using ChatGPT to generate Ansible playbooks and whatnot. And they're not perfect, but if you know what you're doing and you think of it more as a template that needs to be checked, like paths need to be changed, you have to kind of go through it. If you think of it as a template generator, it's not horrible in that way. I've been using it quite a bit. Not to like sound like I'm buying into the hype, but I've been using it for really simple, boring tasks.
Yeah.
That I don't really want to be bothered with. And it's great for that kind of stuff, like taking, pulling out keywords out of an article or out of our show notes, taking in a long, like, freaking the CEO of JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon, writes this annual letter. And it's so long and so long-winded. It's really tedious. And I threw that SOB into ChatGPT and had it pull out the individual pieces, and it was perfect for that kind of thing. So I've been using an app called Chatbot UI, and this is something you run on your own system through Docker, and you give it the Open AI API key that every account gets for free. You just have to go find it in your account settings. You put that API key in the Chatbot UI app, and you get access to more stuff than you do through the web interface. You get longer prompts. It'll follow URLs. You get access to ChatGPT 3.5 Turbo and eventually GPT-4. And you get your own conversation history that's private. According to ChatGPT's terms of service, after 30 days, stuff that you transmit over the API is deleted and they don't use it for training. And then lastly, and the reason I really like it, is it has a prompt library. So I can set up a series of shortcode prompts, and has a pretty good editor. Again, supports variables and things like that, actually. And you can go and just have a library of prompts that are listed down the left side or the right side of the UI. And you can do something like, /summarize. And it just types out my request to summarize an article into its keywords and things like that. And it makes it really quick if you do a lot of reoccurring ChatGPT type functions. So it's Chatbot UI. It's difficult to find, so I'll try to put a link in the notes if I can actually find my original link for it, because the name is so generic. But the breakthrough I had when using this thing, and I think, Mike, you already knew this, is using it via the API and stop using it via the web interface. Way better. Way more stuff. Faster. And like I said, it doesn't keep your history as much. And, for me, the ability to follow links and take more larger chunks of text so I can summarize like a chapter of a book or something, huge. Now, remember, the results vary, so you got to double check that. Ironically, I don't think any of these tools are very good for people that are new to any of these subjects. If you're not a topic expert, you can get bogus information, and it can be small little details that gets wrong. Dates, all kinds of weird things I've had just randomly wrong from time to time. If you're asking it for information, if you're getting it to summarize and whatnot, it's usually pretty good at that. But it's been really, really useful. And I don't know if people are integrating any of this with VS Code, but I'd be kind of curious if people want to reach out and tell us how they're using ChatGPT, because I'm pretty impressed. And I'm going to be interested to mess around with the locally hosted stuff when that becomes available too.
Yep, I am hacking my little soul away on ChatGPT. So
it's a nice tool. I don't want to oversell it, but it's great for just here's another example. I was trying to workshop an episode title, and so I told it, here's what I'm doing. Here's the context. My co-host is doing this. We've been covering this on the show. It's a podcast, and I want a title that's 3 words or so. And I gave it the general thing that I wanted the title to imply. And I could just keep hitting that over and over and over again, like 12 times, until it gave me what I want. And it never gets annoyed. And I can keep tweaking it. Oh, I don't really like that result, but maybe if we tried this. And I'm much better at knowing what I don't like than knowing what I do like. So if you present me something, I can tell you if I like it, and I can tell you if I don't like it. And if I don't like it, I can tell you what would make it better. And so that kind of back and forth dialogue with a stupid computer is actually productive for me. And I'm able to kind of workshop different titles and different show descriptions with somebody who doesn't get bored with me, being nitpicky. So it's useful in that regard too.
The robot overlords are coming.
And now it is time for Le Boost.
And the revolution will be decentralized, so we'll fight. We will fight.
Futile.
It probably is. Split comes in with 19 1,084 sats. 1984 sats.
Coming in hot with the boost.
Regarding the Restrict Act, East German Stasis called it. The DDR called, and they want their surveillance state back. Oh, burn. He goes on to say, funny how a dystopian society during the Cold War seems to be replicating itself with the Restrict Act in a modern era. Goes on to say, with another 4,510 sats, a government official being able to block any app on any app store without any judicial process seems like way too much power. Blocking anything, any tool, reminds me of Fahrenheit 451. Taking copyright law into consideration, written software falls under the same regulation as literature. Thinking a little bit further, this could be turned into an app whitelist, where citizens are no longer allowed to run non-government approved software. Let's hope it never gets to that, although I never thought it would get to this point. So now it actually doesn't even seem ridiculous that it could get that bad. Just in a quick follow-up to the Restrict Act. I don't know if you caught the story, Mike. It's just kind of percolating this morning as mainstream media comes to work, back to work. But it came out over the weekend, started I think on Friday, that a series of documents pertaining to the war in Ukraine have been leaked online.
Yes.
And the line you'll see is leaked on social media specifically. And the live stream and I watched a couple of news reports before we started the show today. And they're really focusing on how, it's spreading virally on social media, which A is BS, because it would have been sent to me. I mean, I get links to everything, that kind of stuff that's going around online. And if it's spreading all over social media, I would have gotten a link. I get links all day to that kind of stuff. But second of all, social media, it was Discord. I guess that's social media, but why wouldn't you just say online? It really feels to me like this is landing right as the Restrict Act is fading, right as the Restrict Act is losing momentum. And it seems like maybe the Congress critters want to back off from something that's really bad branding. This story comes out. Now, I hate to fry the bacon like this, but this story comes out and it sort of adds just a ton of momentum for the need to have a handle on information on social media. And it's a matter of national security. It's not even a matter of health or democracy, but it's national security, Mike. Don't you think that's a little kind of convenient timing wise?
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality is more stuff gets hacked and leaked. Although it's interesting, they haven't said hacked, right? They just said leaked. So that's also interesting.
Supposedly, it's a picture of a crinkled up document.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So you know what they're saying? Everybody, get your martini. It's James Bond time. It's the spooks. The spies are back. Yay. They were never left. I mean, I don't know.
Good times.
Good times. Everybody's got a camera phone now. Look at me, camera phone. What is it, 1998? What am I doing?
Hey, man. I call my phone my camera on accident all the time.
All the time.
Hey, will you grab my camera? I mean, phone.
The Restrict Act is just such a bad idea.
I know. It's embarrassing.
That I feel like even your most senile congressman, or critter or lizard man, is going to kind of balk, right? It's really bad.
It's some serious China stuff, isn't it?
In that somebody was super jelly of China and all the crap they can pull. Yeah, I guess. Sure.
Yeah, it's some firewall China stuff because it prevents the use of VPNs to foreign resources and assets, which could be anything at any time. It could be Tor. I mean, that basically means Tor is illegal to use. It's pretty out there, man. And then to actually be able to restrict what apps can get published in an app store and to control all general transactions for purposes that they have yet to determine seems pretty draconian to me.
And with no hearings and no appeals, that's great.
By a Secretary of Commerce that is in a political position to begin with. It's bad.
It just became super powerful if they pass this, right? Overnight.
Yeah.
You got to think all the other cabinet members what the hell, bro? What are you doing?
I love that their office, the Secretary's office, released a statement in pro of the Restrict Act. Oh, really? You're in pro of getting a whole bunch of more power?
You like getting a ton of power? Oh, shocking.
Purple Dog comes in with 1,000 sats. Here in UK, they're pushing through the online safety bill. It requires service providers to monitor all communications in the name of safety and effectively makes end-to-end encryption illegal. WhatsApp has already said they plan to pull out of the UK if this passes. I totally agree that decentralization is the way forward. What a nightmare. This show and the Jupiter Broadcasting Network, we don't really talk about stuff that is politically dangerous, but if they tried to outlaw the use of end-to-end encryption in the United States, it would change on that day. Like, I would take a strong stance against that. I have 3 children. I absolutely want them to be safe. And the way that happens is by giving them true, genuine safety online. It's an interesting thing that happened recently. I talked about it in this week's Linux Unplugged. I started using an app called SimpleX. It is a chat app that claims to be like the utmost and secure because there's no user identity. There's no central login server. It doesn't need a phone number. There's no email address required. You exchange basically like the equivalent of an SSH key with somebody. And you can do that through an existing medium, or you can do that through QR codes in person. And everybody that I have this with currently, with the exception of one person, I've done it through QR codes in person, face to face. It's using some advanced like signal encryption. It's really good stuff. And I've had this weird change in like what I say on there. I'm all of a sudden, I'm not saying anything that would actually even get me in trouble, but I didn't even realize I was filtering what I was putting into apps like Telegram and other places. But I was. Like I didn't even realize I was limiting myself and holding myself back until I was in an app where I was feeling like 100% sure that it was safe. And then all of a sudden, like a burden was lifted. And I was just more genuine, and it was a really interesting experience. And I realized my whole life I've been using communication mediums that can be monitored, and I have just developed a way of communicating in the background. I have the knowledge that I'm being monitored, or could be potentially, and it does alter what I can and do say. And it's happened for so long, I don't even realize I'm doing it anymore. They've trained me into it. And when I started using a different app that doesn't have that, I started realizing the training was there. And so if you take that and you apply it to all of our communications and all of our financial transactions, that's a scary culture to live in.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is, it's funny, at least in American law, we have the concept of spousal privilege, right? The reason for that is they want you to be able to trust your spouse. Imagine if every spouse everywhere in the world, regardless of status, divorce status, orientation, whatever, could just be like, actually, everything's being recorded. Here it goes to the FBI. Or let's be honest, because the FBI, sorry guys, you guys are losing on this one. The secretary, il secretary de commerce.
Right. Well, and then beyond that, in a few years, they'll just have a natural language model that can look at this thing, and they'll just say, show us everybody in this area that talks about this. I mean, not to really go deep on this, but it just through a Freedom of Information request, we just got the results back that on the FBI's extremist language list, the term based is considered an extremist term. Red pill is an extremist term. A lot of the things people just say casually online now are extremist communication. Now, why does that matter? It matters because monitoring extremist communication is the only justification they need to start watching people's speech. So if you have red pill and based, which are very common terms now, as flag words that are, quote, according to the FBI, on the violent extremism list, they can use that as a standing justification to begin to monitor anything they have access to. Now, is that justifiable? Maybe, but it seems like it's a goalpost that's constantly moving. If red pill and being based are now, and there was more. There's other words too. Those are just the ones that stood out to me this morning as I read the headline. It was unbelievable. It's basically slang. Basic internet slang is getting labeled as extreme speech. And so that opens up a slippery slope where you can monitor just about anybody for any reason if you have the technological means.
Yeah, well, and it's also going to have weird political ramifications because, when we flip back to a more, let's say, right-leaning conservative administration, they're going to add some stuff to that list too, right? And it's just not a good idea.
The Golden Dragon comes in with the last tweet on this subject. A row of ducks. The degree to which Congress is giving an unelected official seems very 1984, extremely authoritarian. The Restrict Act is just absurd. Why can't we just choose to lose privacy or not use an app? We used to be a nation. That's true. You could just choose not to use TikTok. That's what I've done.
Yeah,
I'm fine. I'm telling you. It's fine. Root is good, or is God, comes in with 51,200
I
sats.
hoard that which your kind covets.
I'm a little disappointed in the celebrations for the 500th episode. We all know a programming show should celebrate episode 512. Very true.
Oh,
Thank you for the 512 sats.
that was pretty good.
Hal was right, comes in with fire. Says, talking about Bitcoin and gamer radio, it reminds me, some people think that Bitcoin is a game, such as John Carville. He says Bitcoin is not money, it's a game. Maybe it'll just be a very popular, fun game, which everyone wants to play. And Hal, I propose to you, maybe all of life is a game. And how you choose to play it and look at the game makes all the difference. Ooh.
Ooh, very philosophical. I like it.
Ooh, I know. Sometimes I get that way. Sometimes. Dave Jones, the pod sage, comes in with 2,112 sats and just sends a little bit of love, letting us know he is indeed still out there. Thank you, Dave. It's nice to know you're still listening. Johnny Mac comes in with 1,100 sats. I just got a Mac Mini M2 Pro after 7 years of Windows hell, and I noticed that the Docker support has added Rosetta 2 to enable x86 workloads. That is, you know what? I missed that last week. Sounds like it's time for me to give Docker Desktop a go again. I tried it when the M1, when I first got my hands on the M1, was a little underwhelmed, but it has been, God, it must have been a year or more now. So I'll have to give that a go. Thanks, Johnny Mac. That's great to know. I'd like to know also how you're enjoying the experience and what's not working for you. Because I have to imagine after 7 years of Windows, there's got to be some workflow changes that are a little bumpy, but there also has to be some stuff where you're like, oh my God, this is so much better. We've all been there. DPG comes in with 1,600 sats. Hey, Chris and Mike, I'm boosting to comment on Elon's handling of Twitter. I'm not personally on Twitter. However, I follow a bunch of communities that use it heavily. While I have seen many users leave for greener pastures, it seems most Twitter whales are begrudgingly handing over the monthly payment. A lot of the hubbub has been getting rid of non-paying users, as well as the recent API changes, destroying third-party sources that were monetizing data without a cut to Twitter. I'm not counting Twitter out just yet, and I could see this working out in the long run. Either way, I'm enjoying a more vibrant Fediverse. I was enjoying them labeling NPR as sponsored state media.
I bet you were very excited about that.
Here's the thing. This is not a political matter for me. As somebody who is in podcasting and sells ads, I am frustrated that NPR plays like both sides. They're constantly asking for money and doing pledge drives, and their model really forces their substations to beg and suffer. And they're also doing like $60 million ad deals with Squarespace and the other podcast advertisers that are super common. And they're kind of still unable to make it work. And I find that just gross and infuriating that they get to walk both, like, we're public radio and we take funds from the government. And we're also brought to you by Squarespace. And it's like just completely gross. That's my thing. And so to watch them be taken down a peg and have to like shut down a bunch of their podcasts that they've spun up recently,
Wow,
was a little schadenfreude for me, I have to say. I don't want anybody to lose their job. But,
PBS.
But having worked in the industry for a while and worked for companies that were producing content specific to their companies, I felt for a while that a lot of these companies that have got into content creation in the last few years
Should not have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say, I feel like anybody who ever thought they wanted a Casper mattress or a Squarespace website
You know about it at this point.
probably has one, right? I just, like, there was a 2-year period where every single podcast on my phone was like, having trouble sleeping? I'm like, you're not going to pitch it. God damn it, it's Casper again. Like,
Yeah.
how many mattresses did they sell? They must have sold a ton.
You're going to see, what you're going to see is, it's already happening, but you're going to just see podcasters really just start reinvesting in their membership programs again. Because it's, when the times are tough, it's like the shows that have member support and boosts, I think, are going to be the shows that make it. And the ones that don't won't. And these commercial outfits are just not really set up for that kind of sustainability model.
Yeah.
We'll see. DBG continued with a row of ducks. Because I asked specifically about this. Most food in Pittsburgh is known as Eastern European. More specifically, maybe Polish. There's a Pregios are a delicacy here. I'm probably saying that wrong.
Yeah.
Pierogies, thank you. Yeah.
Jak się masz, Polska?
Yeah, as well as chipped ham. It's used in ham barbecue. Think like cheap deli meat, onions, and barbecue sauce. So I swear it's good. Actually, it sounds good to me. I don't know. Mike's a little hammed out.
Versus like, I'm on the next plane.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. You're making me, you know what? It's working. It's working. Now I want to go. Okay. Rounding it out. Mere Mortals comes in with a row of ducks. As long as people aren't allowing AI anywhere near nuke systems, I think I can sleep pretty safe at night. Although the book Command and Control by Eric Schulzer is pretty great if you want a laugh or get depressed about the shoddy management of U.S. nukes by humans. Maybe it's an even bet, actually. You know, I've heard some of those stories from the Command and Control book. I've heard about like a fully loaded nuke getting dropped out of a plane and actually hitting the ground, but it just happened not to go off. There was also a situation where some Russian monitoring equipment failed or something like that, or some other event made it appear that multiple U.S. missiles were inbound, and they were under standing orders to retaliate, even if they couldn't contact Command and Control.
Right.
But the technicians there just, for some reason, I don't remember the details, but just didn't believe the data and decided not to launch a retaliation strike. And obviously that was a good thing because it was not an actual.
That was the correct choice.
Yes. But there's a couple times where it comes down to like a couple of people made the right call, even though they weren't supposed to make that call, and saved our bacon. It's pretty wild. You'd never think we actually got that close, but indeed. And last, but absolutely not least, is A Row of Ducks by D.D. Smith. Here's a fun nugget. Python is actually named after Monty Python, but I still call it a snake. And he links us to why is Python called Python in the Python docs. Well, how about that?
Well, look at that.
I mean, I always think of it as a snake, but yeah, I guess that the developer was reading the Monty Python's Flying Circus, a BBC comedy series from the 1970s. And they thought the name was short, unique, and slightly mysterious, so he decided to call the language Python. That's pretty great. That's pretty great. I want to wrap up, too, by thanking everybody who boosted in. If you'd like to send a boost into the show and support our ongoing shows, you can do that by getting a new podcast app if you want to try the Podcasting 2.0 revolution at newpodcastapps.com, or keep your podcast app. Just get Alby. GetAlby.com. You top that off either directly or through something like the Cash App. And then you head over to the podcast index, look up Coder Radio. We'll put a link in the notes, and you can boost us right from their webpage. I see this getting really common on Linux Unplugged, but the Coder Radio audience, I'm seeing a lot of boosts from Fountain these days. It might be because Fountain's pretty easy to find new stuff. It's got a great social aspect to it if you want to participate that. And the big one, it streams you sats as you listen, which then generates you the sats to boost back in. That's kind of nice. You can find that at fountain.fm. And I also want to thank the boosters and the emailers who said to check out Andor. I really enjoyed it. I wrapped it up recently, and I thought it was great. I thought Andor Season 1, I guess it was, is great. So I just started Mandor. I'm pretty hyped in the Star Wars universe right now. I'm really into it at the moment. I didn't really watch any of the new movies. I've heard resounding hate for them. However, after watching Andor and starting to watch Mandor, kind of makes me want to watch Rogue One, at least, I have to say. But
nice.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been a nice treat as a Star Trek guy. I've really kind of enjoyed a diversion to Star Wars land. So thank you, everybody who recommended it. Thank you to our members who support the show and keep us going. It has been a busy, tricky quarter, and it's only getting trickier. And I think one of the things that makes me sleep at night is knowing that we have members out there that can invest in the ongoing production of the show. CoderQA.co. If you'd like to join us over there, you get an ad-free version of the show as a thank you. And maybe one day, like a special holiday version. I don't know. We're kicking around some ideas for the holidays for our members, too. So stay tuned. CoderQA.co for that. Is there anywhere you want to send the good people, Mr. Dominic, before we get out of here?
Just go to alice.dev for some automation goodness.
I like it. Nice. You can find the show on the Twitter if you do that, at Coder Radio Show. You can watch us live on Mondays if you want to participate in the live chat and get the show early in the week. It's over at jupiter.tube at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. You can get that converted to your local time at jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. We love your emails, coder.show/contact. Send them in. And links to what we talked about today, coder.show/513. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning this week's episode of Coder Radio. And we'll see you right back here next week.